But first of all, I want to make it from start to finish. This is not pre-chopped, pre-done. Hello, Claudia. It's just starting right now. I'm going to make the soup and you can make it with me in real time or see how it's made in real time. A lot of times I come on and I've already got things chopped up and it's a messy day here. It's like 20 degrees. I think if you look outside, you can see that there's a lot of stuff going on. There's I think it's even hailing right now or sleeting. But another thing you might see is there are a million birds out here in my backyard, and if you just watch carefully, look outside my windows, and you might be surprised at the number of beautiful birds. I've seen everything from blue jays to cardinals to woodpeckers to oh, my husband knows all the names of all the birds, but probably every bird that ever comes around here has been outside our window today. So, what goes in the potato soup? You can see right here. Yukon Gold potatoes, cremini mushrooms, a carrot, some bell peppers, a jalapeno pepper, onion, and lemon. So it's not that complicated, but it's like anything else. It takes a little time if you're using fresh vegetables. So I have my soup pot right here, and I've got my cutting board close to it so you can kind of watch as I'm going and get all these things in. If you have any questions, I can see your comments. But just like everything else, I'm going to saute onions. Oh, I forgot my garlic. Darn it. I knew I'd forget something. Just give me 1 second. Mm. Okay, I got it. I just had a few steps to walk. Okay, and then it has garlic. So I'm going to get my pan on kind of medium high, and I'm going to get this about a 1 cup portion of onions are going to go in here. And this soup is not going to be pureed completely. So we want to make sure that everything we put in here is not cut so big that if we're not pureeing it, we don't want it to be oversized. So that's why, I'm cutting the onions up in a small dice. So that way they're uniform pieces and they're on the smaller side. And that's just the way I like to do it. Then I'll get those in here. Then I'll get the garlic in here. I don't use any oil, so you'll hear things sizzle in my pan. And that's what I do. The natural water and vegetables will release some liquid. And if it's not enough, I have some vegetable broth. I can throw it in here if I need it. But usually I don't need it. Let's see. Terry says we're enjoying watching our birds in this weather too. Diane, hello from Mesa, Arizona. You're probably not facing this temperature in Mesa, Arizona, are you? I wouldn't think that it would be that cold there. 21 degrees here. In this part of the world, we're not used to that kind of weather as it gets supposed to drop into the single digits. And, in this part of the world, we rarely ever get temperatures that cold. In fact, I think 2021 was the last time we had really cold temperatures, and it really messed up our area. I mean, we just weren't set up for it. One of the things that happened at my house is the ice fell off the roof and destroyed a bunch of my shrubs in front because we never would have thought to protect the shrubs from falling ice. And so it cut off a bunch of the branches on our beautiful shrubs in the front of the house. So anyway, you just never know. And then also we lost a lot of outdoor plants that around here survive the winters, but that winter they just didn't survive. So, I have some bad memories of that kind of weather. Okay. So I've got my garlic now that I finally ran and got. I have about 4 garlic cloves. I'm going to throw this in here with the onions, kind of chop it up small. See, Denise says, oh, greetings from Dublin, raining. I'm so thrilled that somebody all the way from Dublin watches my live cooking videos. That to me is incredible. Thank you so much. That I'm sure what is the time difference? Like here it's 2:00 in the afternoon. What time is it in Dublin? Okay, so I've got my garlic and I just kind of chopped it. I didn't really mince it. It's just kind of chopped. A pretty good size, but not big, not small. And then I'm just you can see what I'm doing here. I've got the vegetables and the onions are starting to get kind of brown. So because of that, what I like to do is keep some stock around. I made my own vegetable stock this morning, and I had plenty of it. I put like 2 tablespoons in here, and that will keep it from burning. I've got some carrots, so I'm gonna cut this carrot up. This is a soup that my husband really likes, so he was asking me about soup yesterday. He said, "Do we have any soup?" And I told him, I said, "Not really. We didn't really have any soup in the freezer," but I said, "I can get some. I can make some." So then I was thinking about what kind of soups he likes, and he likes the potato soup a lot. He likes a lot of my soups, but I always know that whenever I make this one, he will eat it. And that's not true of everything I make. I have made things that he doesn't care for, like he doesn't like lentils, which I think is sad because I love things made with lentils. Although in the past year, he has started eating things with lentils. If it's like a lentil shepherd's pie, he'll eat it, things like that, where before he wouldn't touch them. Okay, so I'm just going to chop these carrots into little cubes. Well, it was just one good sized carrot, not super big, not small. But now, and this is probably like a half a cup of carrots. I'm noticing now in the stores that vegetables can be really varying sizes. So if you say one of something and you don't specify the size of it, I saw carrots in the grocery store yesterday that were, they were gigantic. They look like turnips. Let's see, Claudia says it's 12 degrees here and snowing. Is that Germany, Claudia? I think that's where you live. So we have Germany and Dublin. I think that's pretty thrilling. I need to make a note of where everybody's from. Arizona, Dublin, Germany. Tell me where else everybody's from. Let's see. Terry Malnar lives in Tennessee. I don't know where everybody else lives. Looks like Tila Isaac joined. I think she, last I knew, lived in Fort Worth, Texas. We went to culinary school together. So I'm happy to see you on there. That was a crazy time going to culinary school. I was 54 when I started culinary school. I think Tila was in the older age group too. And so we had people that were 18, and then we had people like us that were older. Oh, no, she lives in Oklahoma. Sorry, there's somebody who watches me named Claudia that lives in Germany. Yeah, Oklahoma is supposed to get bad like here too. Okay, I'm just cutting up this mushroom. I'll put this over here so you can see better. First I'm going to slice it, and then I'm going to cut it into chopped pieces because I don't really want it to be sliced. I know this is noisy. I had someone tell me on YouTube once that I made too much noise with my chopping. And I thought, you know what? Chopping makes noise. You cannot chop food silently. It's kind of hard to do. I guess you could, but you'd be doing it really slow. And, and look how fast I chopped this gigantic pile of mushrooms. So, you just you end up making noise. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. So people just need to get over that. And then I think to myself, okay, well, if you don't like something I'm doing, move on. There's plenty of other people on the internet, everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So, you can't please everybody. And, one of the things that I've been doing here lately is I've been wanting to cook as I'm cooking things, not for a show. So not a curated kind of a thing. Let's see. 10 degrees in Anderson, Indiana. Okay. Indiana. 10. See, I shouldn't complain about 21. 10 is colder than that. I put a little more broth in here. So now I have the mushrooms. I've got the onions, the garlic, and the carrot. And I'm just kind of trying to cook these vegetables down a little before I add the potatoes and the rest of the ingredients. And then while the soup is cooking, we're going to make some salad. So I've got everything in here almost except for the bell peppers and the jalapeno pepper. And the thing with this soup is get all your vegetables in, browning and sauteing and cooking, and then we'll worry about the potatoes. So this is a combination of some peppers I already had cut in my salad. Every day, my essential salad box where I keep a lot of cut up vegetables. So I already had all these cut up bell peppers, so I'm just using those. And it's about half a cup of bell pepper. It's not that much. And this is a combination of yellow and orange. I mean, orange and red. Yeah, I put out a lot of bird seed the other day, anticipating this weather. And I remember from years past that when it's cold, the birds are attracted to our house because I guess it's hard for them to find shelter. So they're not only getting food, I noticed one thing is that they're hiding under my back patio cover. There's a bunch of furniture and ledges and stuff, and I looked out a little while ago and they were all lined up. Hello, Aline. Nice to see you on here. So I'm making potato soup. It's kind of like the one I have on YouTube. I added some things to it because my friend Nancy Sirianni gave me some of her potato soup one time. Oh, I missed a mushroom. It fell off. And hers was a little bit different than mine. And I asked her what she put in hers, and she had added things like miso and nutritional yeast and a couple other things. So I made it that way, and I kind of liked her way. So this one is kind of like her way. It's my way with a few of her add-ons in it, which makes it even better. And also I'm trying to cut down on sodium. So by adding the miso, I'm not going to add any salt. And even though it's still got sodium, it's not as much sodium as salt. You get a tablespoon of miso for 800 milligrams of sodium, but a teaspoon of salt is like 2,000 milligrams of sodium. So even though miso has a lot of sodium, it has a higher sodium content than, say, nothing, it has a lot less than salt. But you get the saltiness and umami from the miso. And, it has some fermented qualities, and it's got some health qualities that are actually good for you. So, miso is encouraged. It's cold here too, 19 early this morning. I'm making your mushroom soup this afternoon. Great. Yeah, that was another one that I could have made because I have a lot of mushrooms. Okay, so if you can see in here, all these vegetables have cooked down really nicely. I added a little bit of the vegetable stock because they were getting brown and I didn't want them to burn. And so what I can do is I can just put the lid on this and let this cook down a little bit while I'm cutting up the potatoes. And then once I have the potatoes cut up, we'll add the potatoes and the rest of the ingredients. So you can see this is a really simple soup. There's not a lot to it. And I have these Yukon Gold potatoes. This is 2.5 pounds. I'm not peeling them because it's really not necessary. Yukon Gold potatoes have a very thin, tender skin. So we really don't have to peel them. And how am I going to cut them? What size am I going to cut them? I need a bowl to put them in. So we'll look at this, and I like to cut them kind of small because I don't want to have to do a lot to them. I don't want to have to try to if they're too big, they're not bite size. So I'm making them what I would consider bite size. So I think they're like 1/2-inch pieces. I'll show you, kind of like that. That's the size I like in my potato soup because they will cook down some. If you make them too small, what will happen is they'll cook down too much and you won't even see the chunks of your potatoes. So on the really fat ones, I cut them in half horizontally and then I cut them into pieces. But if they're kind of smaller, I'm just taking them and cutting them into maybe 4 rows of pieces. And that works fine. And I've done this before and made the potatoes too small. And then I ended up with a problem with they kind of disappeared, and that wasn't good. So I've kind of learned, don't overdo it. Erlene Costello is on. Erlene, I am working on doing some Asian soups. I experimented and made Asian tom yum soup the other night. And it was good, but the thing that bothered me about it is to make it have a lot of flavor. It turned out to be kind of high sodium. And I'm really trying to get away from high sodium things. So, and the reason for that is because, I'm trying to manage my blood pressure without any medicine. And I don't want it to go back up. So I use my LifeWave patches, which I find to be very helpful for lowering my blood pressure. But I also exercise and I don't eat a lot of sodium. So those things are important too. Now the sodium that I'm shooting for is like 1,500 milligrams a day. Well, that adds up pretty fast. So if you start looking at the sodium content of food, you'll see that everything has hundreds of milligrams of sodium in it if you really start paying attention. And things like soy sauce and tamari and Asian spices, Asian sauces, they tend to have more sodium than anything else. I'm trimming this one a little bit. It has a little bad spot. So if you see something on your potato you don't like, make sure you trim it off. So I've got quite a pile of potatoes here, huh? And I'm about to put them in as soon as I get through cutting them. So that's my sodium story. So I'm kind of reluctant to make any soup that has a high sodium content because those, to me, I like those kind of soups. And I don't want to be a bad influence on you either and make soups that you probably shouldn't be eating. Because I don't think anybody is kind of carefree about eat as much salt as you want. Most of us have already heard the keep your sodium content low. And also the other thing is fat. So like I don't use oil because to me, the doctors I follow, the plant-based doctors, Dr. Esselstyn and McDougall and Furman and all the plant-based pioneers, they talk a lot about the damage oil can do to the lining of your arteries, the endothelial lining, so endothelium. So, because of that, I don't want to do any damage to my heart in any way because I have a family history of heart disease. And I was even tested for everything recently because my 41-year-old son died of hypertensive cardiac disease at the age of 41. So, there was concern that maybe he inherited it from me. And maybe I was the reason, or somebody in the family was the reason that he had this cardiac disease. But it turned out, no, it wasn't. I had all kinds of tests, and my cardiac tests were all really good. I didn't really need this bowl. My cutting board was big enough. So I'm just putting them all in the pot. See any questions? No? We have about 32 people watching. Maybe a bunch of people are stuck at home like me with nothing to do but cook. I have been cooking a lot today. Whoops, I dropped a potato. Ah, I got it. I speared it with my knife. All right, so I have 6 cups of vegetable broth that I made this morning. This vegetable broth is the recipe from Forks Over Knives that I've made a zillion times. And it's basically, the typical stock ingredients are carrot, celery, onion, parsley. And in the Forks Over Knives recipe, they put in a half a cup of lentils. And what happens is the lentils create some kind of flavor, and it doesn't have any salt, of course. The lentils create some kind of flavor in the broth that's actually pretty good. It's like a depth that you wouldn't get without it. And then you don't add salt to it. Now, what I added to mine was I added a little bit of mushroom powder. I have this thing called Taki umami powder, and it's a mushroom powder, and it makes it like a really nice flavor to Asian food or any kind of food. So, I did put a teaspoon of that in there, and the whole it was like 2 quarts. It was a lot of liquid with 1 little teaspoon of the umami powder. Okay, so I'm going to let this kind of come to a boil, and then I'm going to let it simmer. And while it's simmering, then I'm going to work on our salad. So I'm turning the heat up on that. So remember, I have everything in there. I have carrots, onions, garlic, carrots, jalapeno pepper, bell pepper, cremini mushrooms. I think that's about it. Did I say onion? Anyway, onions too, if I didn't say it. And I sauteed them, let them get soft. And then the next thing I did was I added the 6 cups of vegetable broth. And then I'm going to let it come to a boil and then reduce it to a simmer. Usually takes about 20 minutes for potatoes to get cooked. And then we can also add, let's add the seasonings while we're at it. I forgot the seasonings. Let's add our oregano, thyme, and rosemary. These are dried herbs. If it were the summertime, we could use fresh herbs from the garden, but it's not summertime, so use what we have. So a teaspoon each, maybe less rosemary because rosemary can be kind of strong. So I'll just use half a teaspoon of the rosemary. Okay, Gabrielle, Susan. Well, that would be nice if the rosemary was open, but it's not. I probably have an open one somewhere, but watch out. But you could season this any way you want. If there's a spice blend you like, go ahead and use that. I just happen to use these spices that I like. These things are really hard to get off, so I have to use my knife. Probably not a good use of your knife. But you know what? I use my knife for everything, good or bad. Okay, so now I got it. All right, so maybe a half a teaspoon of rosemary, because like I said, rosemary can be kind of if you overdo rosemary, you can't undo it. And then I have some oregano. So I'll put in a teaspoon of oregano. Oregano is usually not that strong, so I like oregano. Then we have some tamari, teaspoon of tamari. A battery. Let me try this other one. Hold on. No, 1 second. At work, I have a different sound, a different microphone. Can you hear me now? Okay. Now you can hear me? Okay. I had to just change to a different mic. Yeah, the battery, I thought it was fully charged, but I guess it wasn't. Yes. Okay, good. You know what? Technology, you can have everything you think perfect, and then something like that happens. So, anyway, I have a backup, which is good. All right. So now we have all the different flavorings in there except for nutritional yeast and soy sauce. And we'll put that in later because we don't really have to put that in right now. So let's let this boil and then we'll simmer it. In the meantime, I'm going to make my salad. And that won't be that hard because I have all the ingredients to make it with right here close by. So we will do that. So I made this Asian slaw or a version of it not too long ago. And it was at a conference and I made the lunch for the conference. So I made all my friends a bento box and they had, part of the bento box was this Asian slaw. And so everybody was going crazy over this thing that I just threw together. It was like, it wasn't even a recipe. It was just, some cabbage I had in my salad essential container that I always keep. And so I thought, wow, I'm onto something here. That was really good. Everybody liked it. So then I started thinking, I need to make a dish with just that Asian slaw and not just a little tiny side. So I'm making a big container of this Asian slaw and I'm going to have it for the next few days because in my experience, this stays good for quite a while because cabbage is great. Cabbage lasts for a long time. So if you make something with cabbage, you don't have to worry about it going bad so fast like lettuce. Lettuce would never last that long. All right, so I've got my mandolin. I'm going to use this tray for the cabbage so it doesn't fall all over the place. I have my cut resistant glove. It's not cut proof, so just remember that when you make stuff with a mandolin, mandolins are extremely sharp, okay? And this one is really sharp. It's a Japanese mandolin. It's in my Amazon store if you need one. And I have some really nice organic green cabbage. And I'm using just a flat blade. And this is kind of a sort of a thin shred, but it's not super, super fine. It's fine. And I'm keeping my hand far away from the blade, even with the glove. And I'm also not going to cut the core, the hard little core here. So I'm going to cut around that. And that also gives me something to hold on to. But you can see that little pile of cabbage is growing. And it's very nice. And I just love cabbage shaved on the mandolin because it's just a nice texture and it's not hard to do. I think I could make it a little bit wider than that because it's taken longer than I want. And so I just kind of rotate the head of cabbage around. And my recipe calls for 8 cups of cabbage. And so when I get down to this kind of core, that gave me something to hold on to, but now I can just set that aside. And if you have any big leaves like this that didn't get shredded up, I hold on to those to the end, and then I can just kind of do those by hand. And that does happen. Okay, let's look at our soup. This is what I mean by bring it to a boil, a rolling boil. We want to get it really hot. And then now we can reduce it to a simmer. And I'm going to keep the cover on with a little bit of an opening. And then we can cook it for 20 minutes. So that'll be, let me set a timer. Oh, I see some birds. Have y'all seen any birds behind me? I see one right there, just right now. I see some over there right behind me in out that window. So keep your eye out for the birds. All right, so I have another half of cabbage. And this was a really fresh, beautiful, organic green cabbage I found at the Central Market, which is our magical store in Fort Worth, Texas, that has really super fresh, always delivered produce that I've never been able to find any as good anywhere else around here. Because I live near some grocery stores in my little town, but Central Market is like a 30-minute drive. But when I go get organic vegetables down the street at my local grocery store, Albertsons or Walmart, then I get it home. And even though the date on it will be way out, the date will be far out, it's already bad. I've had this happen numerous times where the produce is already kind of wilted and not very fresh, even though it says it's good for another week or two. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but if I go to Central Market, which is owned by HEB, which is a big grocery chain here in our area, almost never do I run into that problem. Okay, so that got most of that cabbage too. And these are still good pieces. I'll use them for something else, but I'm getting kind of down to the end. Okay, so now I've got this nice pile of cabbage with only a couple of pieces that are a little big. And I'm going to put this in my glass bowl that I'm going to use for my finished salad. It should be 8 cups. So I'm just going to go by handfuls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's probably a half, but my secret thing is I have some purple cabbage that I already had. For my salad ingredients, that's enough to make it 8 cups. I guess I just knew exactly how much was in here because now I'm sure I have 8 cups of cabbage in here. I wasn't sure if I was going to have the exact amount, but that's pretty cool how that worked out. And then remember these pieces of cabbage that didn't quite make it in the mandolin? And all I have to do is stack them up. And then I can just do what I would do if I didn't have the mandolin, which is just by hand, chop the cabbage. And there we go. So now I have it all in there, some of it through the mandolin, some of it by hand. If you don't have a mandolin, you can just use your hands. Okay, what's all the yes? Tell me what everybody's saying yes about. That you can hear me, that something's going on. Yes, what? Okay. Now I've got carrots. So we're going to use the mandolin again for the carrots. And remember, I always get the carrots that have the greens attached still because they taste better. They just are fresher and they don't have that bitter off taste that you get with carrots. So what are you all replying yes to? Let me know. Did I ask you a question you're answering? Because I don't remember what it was if I did. Okay, so now we're going to julienne blade on these carrots. So the julienne blade looks like this. It's strips, and then we just plop it in to the back of the mandolin and then screw the little screws. And then all of a sudden you have a different blade in there. And then we can make our little, that we could hear you. Okay, good. I'm glad you can hear me. Okay, so now this part is just you take the carrot and you just run it along the blades, and magically they come out to these nice little matchstick pieces like this. These are kind of sticking together, but they are matchstick pieces. Okay, so that's the julienne blade. My julienne blade looks like it's getting a little dull. Some of them are bent. I use it so much. This is how I make all my carrots for my salad box. Okay, and then when you get to the end, I kind of get to the point where I don't want to get too close. So then I just put it aside and I just, make a carrot stick or two for snacking. Because, you have to be careful with these blades. I'm pretty used to it, but even then, I kind of respect them because, I've seen people get hurt with them. Okay, so I get down to that part and then I kind of say, okay, that's enough. Okay, and then those I'm going to set aside with the other cabbage, and I'll cut those up later. But this gave me about a cup of carrots that were thinly sliced. And they're kind of sticking together, I think, because of my blades getting dull. I'm going to have to order a new julienne blade for my mandolin. But that's okay. See, I'll just have to kind of pull them apart. Even though they went through that blade, they're kind of not coming apart. And that's okay. They're still super thin. So we'll just let them mix them in here. So we have the purple cabbage, the green cabbage. Look at that big piece. And some carrots. And then now we're going to put in some scallions. I'm going to cut this piece of cabbage thin. Can't have any giant pieces in there, right? That would look strange. So let's see how our time is doing. Okay, only 14 more minutes. I'm going to stir the soup a little bit. See how it's doing. Oh, it's cooking well. It's also giving me a bit of steam bath. If my hair starts curling in weird directions, it's because my hair is terrible about stuff like that. Okay, I'm going to cut these scallions into pieces, just like rounds, but not very thick. We don't want to have giant pieces of scallions. Any questions about anything? What are you making if you're in cold weather? I'm just kind of curious. Somebody said they're making mushroom soup. I'm making potato soup. I'm also making a slaw, so I have some fresh salad for the next few days. Then I also made pinto beans this morning. Okay, I'm putting the 4 scallions on top in here. And then another thing that I'm going to add this, but you don't have to. This is a serrano chili. Now, this is going to make it really spicy. Terry says, mushroom soup and sourdough bread. Yay! How'd your sourdough bread turn out, Terry? Have you made it yet? I hope you, if you wanted to learn how to make sourdough bread, please, by all means, check out my sourdough bread class. It's on my website. You can send me a message and I'll send you a link. But if you go to chef-julia.com and go to the shop section, there's a whole list of all the classes I've ever taught under classes. And I did a sourdough bread 2-part class last year, and it was very well received. People really liked it. It covered how to start making sourdough bread from the start to finish, like from the starter to the finished bread. So Terry, you're attending. Tell in the comments, say if you found my class to be valuable in your pursuit of sourdough bread. Oh, and it's also whole grain sourdough bread. So it's made with whole wheat flours mostly instead of just bread flour from the grocery store, which I think does not really do a good job of, helping us with our healthy eating. Okay, so here's my cabbage slaw so far. 2 types of cabbage, carrots, scallions, and that's it for now. So the other ingredients are going to be sesame seeds and some almonds. But I'm going to make the dressing, and then we'll dress this. We should have got some tongs, but I'm not going to go and get tongs. We're going to do it with the fork and a spoon. Here, I'll show you my beans. So earlier today, I made a big pot of pinto beans. They kind of thickened up as they cooled, but if I put them back on the stove, they'd thin out a little bit. These are Rancho Gordo pinto beans. And I love these beans. I love all beans, but these are especially good. And I plan to make refried beans tomorrow. So I made these today. I need 3 cups for my refried beans. And then my husband, let's see, Terry says that bread class was fantastic. I rewatch it and refer to the recipes always. So worth purchasing. Thank you, Terry. Yeah, it was a real deep dive into whole grain sourdough bread. And I'm glad that you liked it, Terry, because it took a lot of work. I mean, I worked on practicing my own sourdough bread so many times before I felt like it was good enough to teach a class. Okay, so let's make the dressing. This dressing is really simple too. It only has a few ingredients. And I'm going to show you right now. Very simple. We can just put it in a bowl and mix it up. It just has some tahini instead of oil. Tahini is ground up seeds, and they are included in Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. He allows some seeds are okay. Now, some people are kind of against using seeds because they think they're too fatty. Denise says, I purchased komatsuna greens and wondered if you have a recipe. Komatsuna greens. I'm not sure what they are. Can you send me a picture of them and what they look like? Or I'll have to look it up. That's not something I'm familiar with around here. It may be something I've seen and we called it different, but send me a picture of it. 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. So I've got 2 tablespoons of tahini, 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. And then it takes 1 tablespoon of maple syrup. And this may not be enough for this amount of cabbage, but I'm going to make it work because, again, it has the rich stuff in it. It has the salty and the fat and everything. Japanese mustard spinach. Oh, okay. Yeah, I have had that. Yeah. The Japanese take any greens like that and they make them like I make my Japanese greens. So how I make the Japanese greens is you take the greens and blanch them in water for 30 seconds, then plunge them in ice water. And then once they're through cooking for about 30 seconds, that's all. Then drain them in a colander. And then with your hands, or you could sometimes I use a plastic bag, put them in the plastic bag and squeeze the bag, and then all the liquid comes out. Drain all the liquid out. And then they're all dry because you drained all the liquid out, squeezed it out basically. And then you chop them up, not too small, and then drizzle them with tahini and soy sauce and a little rice vinegar. And that's kind of the Japanese way to eat greens. I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of low sodium tamari. So remember, this is going to be 4 big servings of the salad. So ultimately, the sodium content of this after I put everything in it is going to be 180. I think I figured out it was going to be 180 milligrams of sodium per person per serving. And then we can also put in some hot sauce, but I'm not going to because I have serrano chilies in there. We'll put that hot sauce in the soup. Okay, sounds perfect. Yeah, I make my greens like that all the time, my Japanese greens. Okay, so now we have our dressing, and it doesn't look that smooth, but that's okay because it's going to be blended in with all that cabbage. If I wanted to make it, got some on me. If I really wanted to mix that tahini in smoothly, I could use my little, it's like a little mini stick blender, and I could use that, but I'm not going to today because we were not going to see this. But if I were going to serve this in a bowl, I would probably blend it a little bit better. Okay, so now I've got my salad, and I'm just going to pour this in here. And I'll even use a scraper so we get all of it. Don't waste it because there's probably at least a good teaspoon in there if we didn't get it. And now I have the good old-fashioned fork and knife method because I forgot to get my tongs. And then we just, make sure we get them covered well with our dressing. And that may not seem like a lot of dressing, but it will soak in all this cabbage. You'd be surprised. You think, oh, it needs more. But, there's a tendency for people to oversaturate salads with dressings, and it's not necessary. A little goes a long way. And as it sits, it will really develop a lot more flavor. Okay, so now we can also put in, there's 1/4 of a cup of toasted sesame seeds here. That's a lot. And then also about 1/2 a cup of almonds. So this is where, for today, I'm getting my serving of nuts and seeds out of this. But that gives it this really nice crunch and flavor, putting that many sesame seeds and almonds in it. And I always have those slivered almonds around, so I'm kind of making a mess here. All right, so there you go. This is our delicious cabbage slaw, and I'm going to taste it. See how it is. This bowl looks a little messy now, but I'll put it in a different bowl. If I was going to take it somewhere, I wouldn't take it in this bowl. Mm, wow. Oh, it's very spicy. Woo. That serrano chili, man. If you're going to use the serrano chili, make sure you like it spicy because I can taste it. Can't wait to make this salad. I have all the ingredients. Great, Claudia. It's really delicious. But like I said, watch out for that serrano pepper because, and look at this piece of cabbage. Come on. Gosh, I'd hate for somebody to see that was checking out my cooking skills. All right, so there we go. This is a delicious, wonderful Asian slaw. I think most people would just love this. And the longer you have it sitting around, the better it tastes. And as far as calorie dense, it's just a bunch of cabbage, really. And then the amount of dressing in here, if you divide this by 4 servings, it really doesn't equal a lot. It's really like under 200 milligrams of sodium per person. I'll probably leave out the pepper. I'm a wuss on spicy. Yeah, that pepper was really hot. You could have used a little red chili flakes or, something that adds a little spice, maybe black pepper even if you don't like hot peppers. Okay, so now let's finish up with our soup. I'm going to move this cutting board out of the way. We don't really need it anymore. It's kind of getting in the way. All right, so time-wise, we have 3 minutes left. So let's check the soup. And we may not even need to go 3 more minutes because the stove was on pretty high. I'm just looking for done potatoes. So I've got my little plate here, and I can test the potato, and that will tell me whether or not it's time for us to start blending. So I'm going to take my fork, and it should be very tender. It shouldn't have, any kind of, I still think it needs that 3 minutes. So we'll let it go for 3 more minutes. But I'll tell you the rest of it. I mean, it's pretty much done, but I want to make sure the potato is really soft, not just mostly soft. And if anyone has any questions, let me know. I see Beth has joined. We'll drink a little water here. So remember, there's nothing in my soup that has any salt at all. I didn't put any salt in it. And there's a little umami mushroom powder in my stock, but very little. So it doesn't have any kind of salty taste at all, which is okay. It's not going to hurt anything because, when you serve soup, you can always add salt to it, but you can't take it away. So if somebody is like me, not using a lot of sodium, you don't want that person to say, oh, this soup looks good, but it's just way too salty for me. One thing we can do is we can dissolve our miso right now while we're waiting for the soup to finish. To dissolve the miso, I'm just going to take a spoon and get some of the soup liquid out. And I'm going to put my tablespoon of miso in this because it's really hard to just put a dollop of miso in something and have it dissolve. What happens is it just stays in a big clump. Watching a cardinal behind you. Yay, I knew there was some. They're all over the place. I just love birds. We live on a big plot of land, like 5 acres, and we're still kind of in the country to the point where we get lots of wildlife, deer, birds, squirrels, you name it. And it's really nice because everything has become so populated around where I live that a lot of the wildlife is just gone. Even little birds. We used to see so many more, and now we don't really see much of anything except in our area. So I have to be very thankful for that. Okay, I'm just getting this miso off the spoon so I can mix it up. So what happens here is that I'm able to take this miso and blend it in with the rest of the soup really well. It's not going to then be, a great big clump I'm trying to mix in. I'm eating your red lentil soup right now. Oh, great. I can't wait to make your potato soup. Thank you, Althea. Yeah, I love that red lentil soup. I make that all the time. Haven't made it lately. I made Indian dal the other day. I bet you guys would like to see that. It was from a cookbook I have called 600 Curries by Raghavan Iyer. And he died a couple of years ago. Okay, I'm going to turn the heat off of this because I'm going to add the miso. And then I'm going to add my cashews. But yeah, he was an Indian chef, and he wrote a book called 600 Curries. Really good book. I mean, just outstanding. I think it was award-winning. And anyway, none of his stuff is really plant-based, although there are a lot of vegetarian recipes, but they all have butter. But I'm able to modify them. So he had a recipe in there for dal, which is red lentils, with a lot of garlic and ginger and hot chilies. Oh, it was so good. And I didn't make a huge amount, but I thought, I need to make that for my people. Okay, here's my cup of cashews blended with a half a cup of water. So that makes it creamy. Now, some of you don't like cashew cream because of whatever reason, you just don't like it. You don't have to put it in. You can just have potato soup that's not creamy, or you could use white beans. Now, white beans will never give you the richness that you get from the cashews. The cashews make it taste like it has dairy cream in it, kind of, because cashews are very rich. So that's the reason that people love the cashews, because they do impart a really nice kind of a richness to the soup. But, like I said, if you don't want that, you can use white beans and you'll get some thickening. It won't be exactly the same, but it'll still be good. So, not to worry either way. So then I'm missing a couple of ingredients. I think I was going to put a dash of hot sauce in here. Just a few drops, even though it has a jalapeno pepper. Can make it spicy. Can you do a cashew bean combination? Yeah, sure, Althea. You could do both. That way you could cut back on the cashews and then put like half a cup of beans and half a cup of cashews. But you do need to puree them. Okay, and now I'm going to put in, 2 good-sized tablespoons of nutritional yeast. And I have this sorry nutritional yeast. It doesn't have the fortification in it. It's not fortified, so it tastes good. It doesn't have this weird there's kind of a medicinal flavor to some of those brands of nutritional yeast that I don't like. They taste really strong, not in a way that I like. Now, some people may like it, so if you do, that's great. Okay, so I've got my nutritional yeast. the miso, and let's see what other things I said I was going to put in here that I was going to add. Sorry, I have all my notes here. Oh, black pepper. So then I have my black pepper. I'm not adding any salt, but I'm going to taste it, and I may end up adding half a teaspoon. We'll see. So I've got all these things mixed in here. Doesn't that look good? It's kind of thin, but I'm going to show you what we're going to do to thicken it. Okay, spoon. I have this spoon I didn't use for any tasting, so it'll be my tasting spoon. All right, let's see how this tastes. That's really good. It does not need any salt. The miso and the miso and the tamari was enough. So that's really great that we don't even have to add any salt, and the soup has a lot of flavor. I love that. Now, when you get ready to eat it, you can grind a couple of grinds of your salt. Your, freshly ground sea salt is what I use. And I measured it out a while back, and 2 grinds from the salt grinder equaled like 75 milligrams of sodium, which is very little. And it goes a long way because it's right on the surface. And that was something, I think it was Dr. McDougall would say that, maybe it was Dr. Furman, one of them, I think maybe it's Dr. Furman. If you put the spice or the salt on the very surface of your food, then you get the flavor, it hits your tongue. Okay, so I put 3. I'm going to put 4 cups of my soup in the food processor, or you could use a blender. That leaves me with another 4 cups still in the pan. There's still quite a bit in here. And I'm going to go back here. You know where I keep my food processor. It's right back here in the corner. I'm going to come back here. It's not going to take that long to get that going.
What?
So 30 seconds. 30 seconds in the food processor is what I did. Now, was it enough? Probably. I think so. Yeah, that looks good. And, you don't even have to put it in the food processor if you don't want to. That's kind of a preference thing. But look, this is very smooth and very thick. And what that does is that will thicken the rest of it really nicely. Now, could you do the whole thing like that? Could you just process the entire batch of soup? Yeah, you could, but I don't really like the way that tastes. I think that leaves some kind of, it's just too smooth. And I think when you have little chunks of the mushrooms and the other vegetables in there, that actually makes it better. So I've played around with this soup many times to make different versions of it, to get it to where I like it. And you see how the soup is thickened up. It isn't as thin as it was. That's because the pureed part adds the thickness. We don't need flour. We don't need cornstarch. I'm going to put the heat back on just low and let it simmer a little bit longer. We don't need any of those kind of thickeners because we thickened it naturally with using the soup. I'm going to get my spoon cleaned off so I can taste it again. Okay, so now it's a clean spoon. Now let's see how it tastes with the cashews. Blended. Very good. I can taste the nutritional yeast, but it's not overpowering. If you wanted your soup to be a little saltier than mine, you wanted it to have a little kosher salt, go ahead and add it. Like I said, I'm just being really careful with sodium because of blood pressure, health, whatever. The older you get, the more inflammation and issues with your health crop up. So I just want to prevent anything. And so I'm trying to eat as many vegetables, less salt, a lot of beans. So what I have here in front of me that I can have for a decent meal tonight is I have the beans I made earlier today. And I've got YouTube videos on how to make Rancho Gordo beans, several of them. You can look those up. These are so delicious. If I heat them up, the liquid will kind of come back. It's kind of thick. So I can have half a cup of beans in a bowl with some onions and cilantro and jalapeno peppers. Then I also have a salad already made. I've got my delicious slaw. And if I wanted to add some more crunchiness to it right before I ate it, I should have saved some of those almonds because, they're going to be in here and they're not going to be as crunchy, but they're going to taste really good to me. And then last but not least, I have the potato soup. So we made all this together. It's less than an hour to make the potato soup from start to finish and to make this giant bowl of slaw. So it doesn't really take a long time to cook great things, but it does take some, preparation and some kind of planning to have all the ingredients. So what this will do is I have enough soup for my dinner tonight, for my husband, my son's staying here. I have salad for 4 meals. So I can have this for dinner, and lunch the next couple days, which is great for me because I love salads. And I don't mind eating the same one more than once if I really like it. Kendra says, looks delicious. Thank you. So there you go. There's our potato soup, Asian slaw, and even some pinto beans. So make those things, and I am going to be making more food. I'm not sure what's coming up next with this cold weather. I have to see what I feel like making, but I'm going to make something maybe even tomorrow because I'm stuck at home. Everything's iced up, so I have time to do some live streaming and get some other things written up. So you'll see more of me in the next 3 days. I think we're stuck at home Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday is the first day that it's going to get above freezing. Oh, did you see that bird? I see one right behind me. Just came by. It was a cardinal. All right, everybody, I'm going to get all my mess cleaned up and get this put away so that later on tonight we'll have something for dinner. Stay safe and warm. Thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you attending my live stream. Bye-bye.